Good Lord.
All right, today is Wednesday, July 6th, and we will call the Utilities Committee meeting to order at 7 o'clock. I'll do a roll call. Paula Durbin.
Here.
Mike Richard.
Here.
And I am here also. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting on May 4th?
Go ahead.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll-
Minutes.
And I'll second that.
All right. Then that's
Yeah, do it all in favor.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right. And then can we have an approval of the agenda as published for tonight?
I will make the motion to approve the published agenda.
I will second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll move right into the discussion items tonight. The first one on our list is the fiber optic ring, and it looks like we have an estimate here that Julie sent over. So, Tom or
I'll
Nikki?
jump in there, and then we'll, I think, share this a little bit. About 3 or 4 months ago, in a recurring fashion, you have this fiber optic, what are you gonna do with it? Why didn't you ever light it? A whole bunch of issues. So that resurfaced, and it came about through a business and retention meeting with Edgar Trent. So people were out there, that came up. A little bit before that, the Port Authority and the partnership both were talking about what they could do. And they were gonna ask for money from the city to fund the study. And it's our ring. So we funded the study. I don't remember what it was, I think 35,000, but I could be off by a little bit, to assess the ring and its usability, et cetera, et cetera. So they went and did that. But the proposal at the back in this little packet is the kind of the last page of a fairly detailed assessment that you all can have. I didn't think it was useful tonight, of where the fiber optic ring is now, what they perceived as what needs repaired, what wasn't completed, etc. That led to this proposal. So now we're $80,000 into it. It starts to become, something to discuss, not just, Nikki and the line department, but bringing council in. So that's the background. What they would do, this proposal, which is, it may come in a little over that or whatever, but it doesn't look like it would require bidding, but is to go ahead and have it put into a position where it could be put into service. Okay. In that report, probably you'll read that whether there are customers out there for us, I don't know. Most of the people our commercial customers have a data solution. And I'd be just running off at the mouth if I said, well, I don't think they're very satisfied. I don't know that. What I'm suggesting is the upgrading of our system for our own purposes is really worth looking at, meaning the city's purposes. So that is the fiber optic ring update and the proposal of bringing it into service. The next topic, B, is kind of the connection. Okay, now it's in service, what are you going to do with it? And for many years, the SCADA system, which I think is best described as, I think it's supervisory something. I asked to have that and I didn't memorize it. It's an acronym. Basically, if we completed the ring and we made improvements at all of our key utility installations, we could communicate remotely. I'm mindful of the time. about 3 years ago, we had a situation where one of our lift stations stopped working. When we have a power outage or we have problems, you have to go out physically and look at it to see. And it was surcharging in a way that was a real bummer, and it caused property damage to a township resident that we ultimately paid some damages, correct, Nikki? So anyways, we were sort of blind about that. An electric example, when we have an outage, the guys know kind of where to look, but they have to go out and drive around and identify that. With the SCADA system, you would, the power is out right here, and it gives you that feedback. So we partially implemented, I'm going to cover all the utilities here in a second. We partially implemented it in water, so that the superintendent now can monitor the depth or the lack of depth in the water tower, and get an idea if we're drawing down water too much. Real helpful when you have a fire emergency and you know you're losing a lot of water, but you're not quite sure. Should we go in and make more water? So anyway, that's kind of the outline of what SCADA is. And it's certainly a Googleable item. You can look it up and we can all learn about it. But what happened when Nikki and I first started with the city is that it was on the capital improvements list. We need to do SCADA. And it became easy to cut in that environment before we were released from fiscal emergency, where you had to be able to balance 5 years out. So, what capital improvements do we defer? Well, let's defer SCADA. Quite honestly, we had different superintendents in those years, and they were like, yeah, I don't think they were real enthusiastic about it. We have new superintendent at wastewater treatment plant and the water filtration plant. And so I think that management's support of having that tool to know when there's something's gone wrong has changed. So what I want you to consider is the fiber optic ring update. Everybody comfortable with that? You'll probably get feedback on it. Should we, shouldn't we? And then what would the city do with it once you light it up, is the term, what would we do to make it improve our operation? And that's what that second SCADA item is. So.
Well, I know heavens, it's been how many years back that the company that originally installed had approached us to do something like this, but at the time they kind of had an ulterior motive for what they were looking to do, so to speak. In this estimate now, did they identify how much of the ring is not complete? Because I thought
it's at 48,000, and it's itemized. I don't really know what I'm reading, Mike.
Oh, I know.
But you're right. You either had people saying, "Yeah, Karen, this is a bunch of junk. You should really let us take it over, and we would upgrade." It's like, or that other people, "Yeah, Paul, this is the most awesome thing. I'll come in and I'll run it for you." These guys, because what they do is install fiber optics for others all over the place. Again, in this business visitation hall, it's like, hey, we know you've got this. We see it up on your poles. What's its status? And
I know the what was mentioned to me at the time was that the idea, for folks that aren't sure or don't know, the idea of the fiber optic ring is that the effect that if you have an outage, say for example, we're talking about SCADA, Any high-tech items could be hooked up to this. Our larger business concerns, I don't know what they're running on now. Obviously, they're doing something, but the idea was for the ring originally was that they could hook up to that ring. And if you would have an outage wherever on that ring, you would never be down because it would automatically reverse itself. And that was the kind of, as the one guy said, the holy grail of fiber optics. Because a lot of places are one way, basically. So besides the SCADA is the idea that the fiber optics is not only more economical, but it's higher. You can run higher speeds on it. I'm assuming they're doing all the updates on it.
Yeah, I don't, from what I understand, I think that base this idea on we'll get some of our big data users, the obvious choices, the school and the hospital. I don't know. Maybe they're happy.
Maybe not.
Maybe they want a backup. We don't know. And shouldn't you go out and see if you have all these customers first? That might be an opposing view. It's like, no, we have enough need for it internally. That I think this gets a little bit off it, but we're looking at limiting our operating costs of our treatment plants, and maybe at some point looking at different shifts and how we staff, without being threatening. No one's going to lose their job over it, but this would help you in terms of those off hours.
Right.
And so, I don't, and it's too much, getting into too much detail, but anyways, I think it's real helpful there. And
well, this would help. Wouldn't this help the current employees that are out there at the various plants that, with the SCADA and anything else that comes up that can be hooked to this, gives them.
Here's a different way to answer that. Those folks who are counting on overtime will hate this. Those folks who, the link to the shifts, when you look at the filtration plant, the overtime's, wow, that's a lot. Among other things, trying to address that. I think that will help us manage that. So I think that's the old cliche, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. This will help us measure it. And we may pick up commercial customers. And having a data fiber optic ring like this, not in any way promising, you may be able to attract other data sensitive, it's important to them, businesses, either new ones or Life Touch, for instance, which I can't tell you tonight exactly what their plans are for gallium, but I think the better we can receive and throw data out to the world.
But it's also something you can offer people that are looking to move into this area, companies, small companies or whatever.
Right.
Maybe even the food industry can use that at some point. Or I saw something on a news show several months ago about snow plows, how they were the snow plows moved much more efficiently, had more roads cleared in less time because of the way the data was. It's got unlimited uses. It has unlimited uses.
Having granddaughters at the ball field, you learn a bunch of stuff. One of them was I met a guy who works for ODOT, and he's a traffic manager. He's in the south of us, but he likes living in gallium apparently, or in the area. So anyways, he has on his handheld just what we're talking about, every signal in this region 6 district. He can call it up.
Yeah.
So it's the first step in a while. Okay, so before we jump to the other thing, that's all a new idea without how are you going to pay for it? Sounds great, but we got notification today that on the 15th we're to expect our check for the second round, dare I say, tranche of recovery money. And so this might be in the capital improvements to the utilities, kind of the top priority for this. This would be something that you could identify and get in place with those funds. So anyways, that's how are we gonna pay for it? The answer is I think you divvy up some of the costs and then divvy up among the different utilities, and then the SCADA thing we would use the ARP money for. So that's.
Then is there like maintenance fees that go along with it and that kind of stuff for the SCADA and for the fiber optics?
I imagine so.
Nikki, is there something you're excited about? Do you think, yeah?
I actually had a long conversation with the wastewater superintendent today, just for, like Tom said, with staffing. The thought was, we only need someone to come in for an hour on Saturdays rather than pay an entire shift. And I said, so they're not gonna go check all the lift stations, we have to have a backup plan because we can't go all weekend without those lift stations being checked. And this would sort of negate the need to physically lay eyes on this stuff. When we have a water line break, sometimes the water plant will know about it before anyone else because quite suddenly the water towers will drop, they get an alarm. Hey, we just lost 2 feet in the tower, something's going on. So it's really useful. And like Tom said, on the electric side, I'm not sure how far we can go right away, but Jerry went to a training 3 or 4 weeks ago and said that some of it is so sophisticated that the lines actually turn red when power is out in a section. The line itself turns red, and that's all through SCADA. So that would be, they wouldn't be out there in the night with flashlights and, because that's a storm night. They were out there literally walking in people's backyards with flashlights trying to find the down lines in rain and wind with live, thousands of bolts laying on the ground. So this would help pinpoint, and from a safety perspective, be a huge improvement for them. So I think one of the supers wasn't very excited about the idea, and then after he went to his training, he's like, "It's so cool." It is. So I think on the SCADA side of things, I think what we're at the water plant, what we have now, I think we pay $900 a year in like software fees. And I think that's probably across the board what we would find as some nominal.
That seems way worth it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So those are two, I think that both the topics go forward together. And what I'm saying, I think here's some items for council to think about versus like what will happen here on D. Here's some legislation. I'm going to give you 2 minutes of explanation. I'll get ready to vote on it. I think we've made progress with some of the committees having this kind of discussion about stuff before, as in the next issue, a multiple $100,000 decisions made, and then you're backed into a corner where you better vote for it or else. I don't like technology.
Do you have an idea of dollar amount on the SCADA system?
Yeah, I think that not a good one with a bunch of numbers. But if you look in either the recovery plan or any of the budgets, and Nikki's got, what did we do to operationalize without this water system? 25,000?
It was, I think, 36 or 38, and that was to get both towers, the pumps at the water plant, so they can now kick the pumps on remotely. So the previous superintendent lived up in Sandusky, so it would take him an hour to get here, but in the meantime, he could kick the pumps on and we could start making water, so we weren't just getting precariously low. So I think it was around $38,000.
No, I think, and that's why the ARPA money, it's kind of found money and.
Well, could we do more with it if we spent more?
Oh, the wastewater superintendent today, I said, what is it, what would you need? He's like, oh, I just did it in Plain City, it was $1 million. I was like, what do you need for the basics to get us sort of rolling on this situation? Forget $1 million. Let's start out with the basics. And he said he was gonna have to do some research because, $1 million, I was like, we need to walk before we run.
Yeah, they have a lot of remote private stations down there, I think, where he was at before, where they have a school that's out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody's gonna run pipe out there to bring back the water, take the water out of the sewage. But so they have independent plants, and I think that might have been
They
a
have a
lot of remote locations.
Pretty
where
super
Yeah.
fancy
So-
plant too.
That's a good question, and it may, I sure hope it doesn't gobble up this next $1 million, because that's what we expect out of the second round of the ARPA money that's divvied up by the state legislature. It's, so anyways, that's those two folks, those two items. Think about it, research it. It probably, we could do it this year. If people like the idea, we get decent estimates. It might fall into the 23 budget, or maybe phase it in. So, homework assignment, huh?
There you go.
So the next one is C, 69 KB line.
This is half a finance issue, but it's largely a utility issue. And it's, I think, new to maybe all three of the committee members, but definitely to the, to Kara and to Paula. The couple of years ago, AMP approached us about selling our distribution part of our system. You might remember.
Yeah.
And we said, let's pursue it. Some things happened, from my point of view, within the AMP staffing and management. Again, my point of view, the guy who was had the most practical experience in this took a job in the private utility, so he was gone. So it kind of fell off the radar screen. That big storm, not the one last week, but the one before that, really brought to the forefront of my mind that we're lucky that none of the 69 poles were a casualty like dozens of other great big old trees. And so that brought that, it's like, we gotta get this on the agenda and begin to think about whether we want to sell the distribution system to this division of AMP, known as AMP-T, T for transmission, and then have an agreement with them to service that line, those lines around town, and that they would own. I'm gonna stay on that path for a second. The advantage on the finance side is that in our demand charge, we pay effectively through that money to JPM, the Regional Transmission Authority. And we get nothing out of it. And I'm not the expert. I'm not going to go much deeper into that because I know I'll misspeak and get a little bit off. But the proposition was, if you sell it to this transmission authority, run by AMP, that they then will go to JPM and get the money to upgrade this distribution system that's currently ours. What's in the system? It's the high voltage wires that bring the power up from Morrow County, Dawson, and then the lines that transfer the power among the substations. So from Dawson to Primrose to Heisey Park to Railroad Street. I think those are our subs, aren't they, Nikki? I think that's, yeah. So it's that part of the system that we would sell to them. Without, again, getting into it too deeply, we would maintain the lines under a contract. So if something happened in that distribution at the substation, in any of those lines or in that network, we would be called out like we would now, and then they would pay us to put the substation back online or something more critical than that. So it just got, I don't know, swept aside, not right, just because they weren't as anxious to market it to us, as it just became a lesser priority. Okay. So the other night with the big storm, lucky, and we kind of dodged the proverbial nightmare. If you can imagine one of these poles goes down, it would bring down that distribution system. And until they put that line back in service, most of it, the whole dang city would be out of power. And then somebody would say, well, how old were those poles? And I would say, older than anybody in this room. And seriously, they are. They're in the late 40s. So the one line goes right, give me another minute. One line goes right through Heisey Park. Wow. The line between Heisey Park substation and Railroad Street goes right through the park, right through the residential neighborhoods, and ends up at Railroad Street, which I think, mixing things up a little, we've got to do something about the location of that substation, maybe both of the substations. So, but we had looked at selling our distribution system to AMP-T, and that kind of put that on hold for now. Isn't that a fair way to say it?
Yeah.
Nobody shot it down, but it wasn't top of the agenda.
I think part of that was that the virus hit it.
Yeah.
That was a cooling effect for pretty much everything across the board for it.
Yeah.
Like Tom said, AMP wanted to take and utilize the transmission line from us. They would pay our guys to maintain it. They would do all the upgrades for it. So it was.
They would go to JPM and get the 6 or 8, whatever million it is in these days terms, and they would upgrade that system. That would be kind of the trade-off. Okay. So that.
But the difference from the last time to here is that you said we would maintain, the city would maintain, but we would get.
Yeah, we get paid to do that. I think Mike said it better than I did. So our workers would get called out. It wouldn't be like, our system is down, substation's down, and so we would call AMP and they would send a private contractor. They would call us and we go out and fix what used to be our stuff that would technically be AMP-T's stuff. So but for the age of the system, and I think everyone has recognized for a while that once we pay for the upgrade that we've currently are paying for, it's done next year. It's about $850,000 roughly, the debt service on that. And I'm not even going to attempt the voltage, but the 3 or 4, there were 5 phases to upgrading from at the sort of customer level. We upgraded the service. I think since that happened, we've had less reported outages from our industrial customers, and we still get a flicker, but I think if you go back 4 or 5 years, you can remember like the voltage would drop, the outages were much more, I think, frequent. So that has helped that part. And the next, I think everyone who's looked at it would agree, now you have to do something with the 69 line.
So what would the pro be for AMP to spend all this money on these lines? What are they going to get out of it?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, they would get, I I think they would answer this by saying it would improve customer service. You're one of our members, we want to do things better for you. And then the other thing they would say is we can get access to all those capacity dollars. The JPM funds a lot of the upgrades to the distribution, the grid, if you will. So there's another layer of stuff to get into. I have some questions about they have done this in other communities, but they've had higher voltage lines. 69 is real high voltage for us, but it's relatively low voltage in some distribution systems. Napoleon would be a good example. They've got a great big Campbell's plant over there, and so they're a power at higher voltage.
Because I feel like I remember talking about this before, and we kind of said, like, why do we want to be the guinea pigs to try it?
That is exactly right.
So I wonder kind of if they got other communities to sign on.
That's a good question, and one way or the other, we're going to need to stare down the issue of our aging distribution infrastructure.
So doing this would actually save the city money, if 10 years down the road. We would get very little by selling it. We did a valuation Right,
of what we have. It's old, it's fully depreciated, we don't have good records on it's what we paid for. Anyway, it would allow us, whatever we paid for that acquisition, it would allow us not to have to borrow another
That would be good.
7 or 8 million.
That would be good.
So the plan would be take that money we have in debt now and transfer it into rate reductions. Or get ready to incur a bunch more debt, because I don't think it's responsible for us to just keep hoping nothing happens traumatically.
Well, I think
through
you're walking a tightrope when we got through this. Well, what about in the fall when the storms get really bad? It's just.
Paul, I agree, and ice and all the kinds of things. We had kind of two pathways. One, and maybe you do both. You look at AMT and see if the circumstances have changed. If they have, your question, has anybody else done this? I think those are the right questions. And then if that doesn't work, we'll have to then pay GPD to engineer the big upgrade of replacing our own lines, and whether that's lines and substations, who knows. I'll drive you nuts with one more thing. I absolutely believe that the Railroad Street and the Heisey Park substations are in the wrong damn place. Wow. The substation in Heisey Park was the edge of town. That's the answer. It's like, yeah, that was out. They did put it at the edge of town, you knucklehead. The town grew around it. So repositioning that, and at least at an engineering feasibility study, looking at moving it so that these lines can be taken out of the neighborhood and go down Portland Way to connect the Railroad Street and this. So you would probably move it out towards the industrial park area. Out of that area, you get it out of the park. That has some benefits. You're starting at, I realize that this isn't a really fast Uber meter. This is going like ding, 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 ding. And then the other one that comes up as a different problem or opportunity is where the Railroad Street substation is. It'd be a bad day in Galleon, a great day in hell, or whatever, however you want to say it, if we had something catastrophic happen at Powers. But if you did, that would be a casualty, one would think for sure. So among the things we're looking at with our reservoir system and satisfying ODNR's concerns about that, they've got some specific concerns about powers. And so in this overall,
Is this possibly something that you could negotiate with AMP to move those substations?
I think if we decide to go that route, there'd be, Galleon will do these things and AMP will agree to go to JPM and find the financing for relocation of 2 substations, that line, and the upgrade of the existing. So I think that what you're saying is a concept or approach. You know, that's probably what we're looking at. So, anyways, it's unlike D, Madam Chairman. These are more, we need to think about it before we make any decision, and it's sort of a reintroduction somewhat to us, but it's new to kind of new to other members of council. So that's the point of it.
Well, and I'll add to that is that while there is some questions for sure, I kind of have been in favor of doing it with them, mainly because of the fact that the whatever downsides might be on there, the upside is getting the new KV line put in, all this other stuff done that's going to be coming down the pipe, that is going to be a major cost. And that's,
$1 million a mile, isn't that it, Nikki? Something like that.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
So that would, I think there's 6-7 miles of wire and pipes, but I don't think that number is a replacement of the substations. Which you, as a condition of selling that, you agree to go get money to replace these things. Anyways.
But I think we should resurrect it.
I'll bring them up here. I'll bring the right people up here, and we'll do this in a month or whenever they can get up here. Is that
Sounds good.
okay?
Yeah.
That sounds good, yeah.
All right.
So then the last thing is ordinance number 2022-53.
Yeah, no attempt to make a pun out of this, but this one we're going to jam down your throat and get ready to vote for it. There is a committee, quickest background, been around since the early 90s. It's a solid waste planning committee. I was a member, but not very active. They have passed out of that group pretty much a status quo of the existing management plan. It is available. I signed as a member of the committee, but council has to approve it. They need a certain percentage. I think it's 60%, but
It is.
okay, good. My memory is failing, but not totally. So 60%, the legislative bodies of 60% of the population of the county or the solid waste planning area, that we're single county, have to approve it. So
You have to have the city of Bucyrus and 60% because they're the largest municipality.
Is there a deadline on this?
yeah, I think it's the end of the month. I think it's the end of the month. Oh, we just started. It's coming up, Paul.
You got a copy of that report, it was like 205 pages or something.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, Matt says, should I send this stuff out? It's like, it's electronic. I said, yeah, go ahead. But it's not a tree hugger's favorite. There's still consideration of stepping up recycling, but there isn't anything in there about mandatory recycling. I think the biggest change along something like that is if, for whatever reason, Bucyrus decides to get out of the sanitation business. So they got a handful of people that they, I think, plow snow in the winter and pick up garbage, but, you know, sanitation's 52 weeks of the year. So they are still in the business, and if a recycler, like the folks that run the landfill, decided to get into recycling, I don't think they would do it until Bucyrus decided to get out of the direct hauling business. But that's not, I'm getting off of the sidebar, it's goofy. What's in the plan is pretty much status quo. So there's some highlights, take a look at it. The test will hopefully be on Tuesday night when we try to get it accomplished. I don't.
Is this what we've done before?
Yeah, 5 years ago we did it, and I acted like the big bad wolf. We'll have more of a say, and then COVID happened.
Yeah,
My
2016.
my daily COVID excuse. But there was no explanation. There wasn't much of an explanation this year, although Commissioner Weisenhower came over and we talked for a minute. So that's what that will be, and I think everybody, I know you got it, I think everybody on the committee got it. I'll check with Matt, see if.
No, I sent it to him.
Oh, you did? She did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just haven't seen
Good.
it. It's,
All right.
yeah, I came across, I just haven't had a chance to read through it and stuff.
Oh, you didn't read through all 200 some pages? Shame on you.
No.
Ask, to formulate whatever questions, and we can ask them but it probably comes your way if it gets voted out here in a minute or so. It probably comes your way with that, we need an emergency.
Yeah, probably.
So, yeah, in fact, it's back here, it does say, and declaring emergency. No. That's all I got.
Well, given the circumstances and stuff, I mean, obviously it could be a discussion on council, so, I would like to make a motion to move ordinance 2022-53 on the full council.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Alright. Is there any other business?
Yeah, there is, but not, it's like this subject matter area. Anybody who wanted to be on this committee to have an easy assignment, it's queued up kind of funny. Two things I make reference to, one, electric vehicle charger. I know Mike doesn't plan to have an electric vehicle in his lifetime. I don't think I do. But it was at least a year ago we discussed it. It just, I don't think bottled up's not to be, there just wasn't support in the committee to take a proposal that we had put some time in the mayor's office. We brought it because the 3-year lease would have taken the cost over $50,000, and we could have done a workaround. We could have done a workaround. We thought that was stupid. And then when we started putting in the transformer and doing stuff, I'm sure council said, what the heck's going on? So we brought it forward. Just not much support for it. So I want to maybe resurrect that idea in an upcoming meeting. And the long-term, this is the genie out of the bottle, the long-term, it's almost, our power portfolio. I don't believe it's too soon to start looking at the mix of it sounds like amp talk, but resources that we have. We're gonna burn out the wind power, our contract's gonna expire there, not one way or another about that, but the mix of power probably needs a discussion here. Some couple of expensive hydros, the now bottled up Fremont, which has worked real well for the participants, but you're not going to be able to burn natural gas, and then expanding that, we don't have, and then the very thick in terms of the amount of power that comes out of Prairie State. So I wish I could get you more of the reporting on what happened in Illinois wasn't. I spent a lot of time searching for it, and it was as if there was a gag on the Chicago Tribune. but the long-term future of Prairie State is gonna be remixed. It is being remixed, and we need to not be in a reactive mode on that. So we need, I guess what I'm saying, we need to start looking at other sources of power if what we can buy from that facility goes down, and it's
I think we kind of I started thinking about that a couple of months ago whenever I came in and listened to their presentation and saw the percentage of power that we get from coal, and just knowing those federal deadlines, I think it will be smart to kind of start looking at, because we got that pie chart of like 80%
Yep.
from coal, 2% from hydro, whatever.
yes.
Yeah.
And Jade, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I know to some people it's a nasty word, but what about the wind power? You know, wind power's been, and I hate to say this, but I lived in Texas 25 years.
Yeah.
And they use wind power in West Texas. I mean, there's just acres and acres of windmills. And it's been very successful. They've been there 20 plus years, probably longer
Right.
than that.
I
So, yeah.
think my memory is that AMP is not using their wind farms anymore, right? Because we use a little bit of wind
We
here.
have that
But I
place up
think-
in northwest Ohio, I believe it is.
But
Wind
AMP
power.
is closing down or taking out their share of the.
Yeah, we're not, I don't think AMP's renewing the chunk of that. I'm not sure Blue Herring will give a care. But the point of it is, without trying to solve it, is that we need to educate ourselves on how that will change. And I'd like to be here to report in 2035, but that's a long ways from now. On the flip side, I don't know, that's what I'm thinking. I plan to, but the reality is, if we don't start planning
Exactly.
and looking at those options, we're gonna hit that wall, and then people say, well, what were they thinking in the early 2000s or the early 2020s? Well,
Yeah.
I want to begin to discuss that, look at, and the one alternative sustainable that I think I'm more intrigued about than wind, but we can have that debate, is you see increasingly small solar fields. And I think
That was my next.
that bears an investigation, and I was approached by a area entrepreneur a couple of weeks ago, and there's some tentative discussion about this would be a privately funded, and this guy was looking for somebody who would buy his power. So I shouldn't have done this, Mike. I'm going to get into. We aren't, from AMP's point of view, a favored entity in terms of solar development, and you can explain it pretty quickly. We have this peaking station out by E-Crane. It's a diesel peaking station. And it goes on every time our high demand, our peak power request is. Okay, there's a daily, and then there's.
Diesel power?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. God.
I didn't make that decision, Miss Paula. I don't know, man. That's what I thought too. So this will definitely give you something to think about. So when we called to explore, the JPM looks at us as a net exporter of power, because on our peak days we generate out to the grid more than we use. Yeah. So AMP, the short version of it, AMP really doesn't want us in one of their multi-city consortiums because we don't have a deficit.
We don't meet the criteria that they think they want.
Yeah, I'm not, so in this discussion about what do we do going forward, I think looking at solar, not necessarily, we don't have to be involved in a consortium. We could generate it and kind of use it ourselves.
And then, whenever I was doing research about this a couple months back, there was one other kind of power that I was interested in. And in my mind, I could only think of it as trash gas.
Oh, Methane?
Methane that they create from the landfill,
Yeah.
the gases, then they make it into power. I thought that was pretty
Well,
cool.
you know-
It's natural gases, they turn into basically methane and then they generate,
You know, the
Fuel
west,
generator.
the southwest has used hydropower for decades.
right,
Well, now with the drought and stuff, that's becoming a problem for them. And Texas was a little bit ahead of it with the windmills in West Texas because it's so dry and but it's windy.
Yeah.
It is windy and
so our hydro investments really expensive and just sort of, I guess, research it and stuff is really the point of bringing it up.
Well, I was gonna say, the only thing with wind power here is that as opposed to West Texas, you don't have the weather as much of a factor there in the sense of ice storms, blah, 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 blah. As
Oh, yeah.
opposed,
oh yeah, in the northwest corner they do.
I do the Northeast and
The
stuff.
northeast is too,
Yeah,
But no, they get ice. Central Texas gets ice. We have ice storms all the time.
yeah. Well, I mean,
It kind of,
and
in Austin.
I'm a one of these all the above type of guy. You know, that's my stick.
I think being proactive on sources of energy is a good thing.
Oh yeah, definitely, because I think
Instead of just waiting until, oh geez, we don't have any power today.
well, and I think in some cases back when we signed on to some of these various plants in the years past, I think that was one of the problems that they came up against those walls, and that created the need to grab on to anything that would look good, which in some cases turned out to be not so good.
Ontario's had great success with that windmill that they put up. It's been very, very, money-wise, it's been very, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Pico Park might be a good example of how a windmill could take that off the city's demand and generate power. It's just it's fun discussion. I want to continue it. But solar is that it matches our peak in that we're residential peaker. We're not an industrial peaker at all. It's all the summer in the afternoon when people of all ages turn their air conditioning on. And so that would be the same time you would have power coming off a hot sunny day. You would be able to, so you would be able to utilize that source.
Did Morrow County end up going forward with their stuff? I know that they were doing a lot of talk about,
And there's a wind project down there too.
because I saw anti-solar signs in Morrow County. That's how I figured out they were looking at solar.
And that's the reason. I think it is unobtrusive as heck, and if you want to have U.S.-made components, you know, if you don't have a certain presence in the market, it's never going to be, and everything will have to float over here. We'll be real dependent on other nations. It just seems like so. I don't know where the solar conversation will go, but there's a local business person who's looking at private and had said, would you guys buy the power? And I don't know the answer to that, but I'm open to it. I also was up front. I said, well, we've got, I think, property out at the airport has pretty decent potential. So in this pursuit of what are we going to do to have a stable purchase power, because I don't think we want to go to the market. I mean, the brownout days, you would be paying, through the whatever, the nose or through whatever to get that power.
Wouldn't work for electric cars very well.
No, it would be, it as far as like buying it off the grid versus having these purchase power agreements,
Right.
that's,
But it would be nice to get to the point to be self-sustaining with our power.
it'd really be cool.
Oh, yeah.
And it would benefit everybody, and it would be a choice that we make for clean air, climate change, whatever.
Yeah,
But that would be, of course, we're probably talking more than 10 years down the road, but if it keeps expanding like it has, it could be within 10 years.
I think that
It's gotta be.
I think that
2028, is that
a
what?
metering initiative, it might be a metering we put on the back burner under previous councils.
Well, I think we need to
The
bring it
metering, this stuff, but also the metering initiative. And this has to do with demand control. If you had a more 21st century system, we could control our demand, that would help. But
But if we can, for lack of a better word, co-op with AMP, then maybe through the years we can really start doing a really good upgrade so we can become self-sustaining.
yeah, we're handicapped because we're part of a joint venture, JV2, of the diesel thing. It's like, well, that's, I don't think anybody explained that to previous administration. So it's nice to host it, but again, it seems to the,
Well, at one time diesel was cheap. You go back 30 years, it was cheap.
it still is cheap. No, I'm just joking. I don't think it's not. It doesn't cheap because you can see it in the grocery. But anyway, there is an advanced metering initiative that when we're ready, we're starting to move some of these many things tonight that we should look at. And it would enable us to control better our demand. Individual customers could, businesses could. We could get people to step off the grid and pay them. So if you said conserve energy, you'd think, well, why should I conserve? It won't do anything for me. Well, if we had the meter that showed you during peak alert that this resident or whatever reduced their consumption, then you could create an incentive.
Didn't we talk about that kind of during that meeting too, where there's certain days of the year where if
we encourage residents to limit their usage so we can help shave that peak without the diesel generator. But that, we send a message out to citizens, hey, this is a peak day, turn your thermostats up, turn off unnecessary. I think that would be a real challenge to get people to say, oh, I'm willing to be 5 degrees warmer today.
Well, that's just an incentive, unless you've got a discount, but anyway.
Well, I've got these big tall windows in my new apartment, and I invested in some blackout drapes just for the upper half, because when that sun comes around on the west side, I've got 2 windows that's like a sauna in there. But I've been very, very conservative turning on the air conditioning.
Yeah.
But those, I really didn't think when I opened them and got them up, I thought, but they really do make a difference. They really do.
Yeah.
And you still have enough light coming in, but you're blocking out that western sun in the afternoon. And I put them on the 3 windows on the east side too. I think it helps in the morning.
Well, it sounds like we have a lot of homework to do, so doing some research and understanding the fiber optic that goes together with the SCADA, and then looking at AMP-T, and potentially having them come in next month, and then thinking about and looking at some different power sources to kind of equal out our little pie chart.
Yeah, it's long term, but it's short term as well. What is that? The portfolio? We're long in carbon, we're long in fossil fuels. Anyway, you're right. Good stuff.
Well, if there's nothing else, our next meeting will be August 1st at 7 o'clock here in council chambers.
Our next meeting is Monday, August 1st.
Sorry, I misspoke, August 1st. Wednesday, August 1st.
No,
Is it on Monday?
3rd is Wednesday.
And Jody has it written down.
What's up? I guess I did. It's August 3rd.
August 3rd.
Oh, man,
Sorry.
man.
So our next scheduled meeting is August the 3rd at 7.
Okay.
Well, what I did.
That's all
And I'll do a, Mr. Triplet. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Well, as much as I'd like to continue the discussion, I'll second it.
right. All in favor?
Aye.
Alright, the meeting is adjourned at 8:01.
I agree with you.
Tom, the guy in town is